This is Recruitment Agency Ignition with Andy Whitehead. Helping you build your recruitment employment business fast. Using digital and automation and one-to-many systems, tools, and inbound strategies.
So welcome to this week's Inner Circle call. Today we've got a hot seat. So a hot seat is whereby a member from the Ignition group shares their story. So they may have been with us 3 months and they've had got straight into traction mode and killed it. They may have been with us a year and done their first seven-figure year. They may be going through a transitional stage and looking to go fully retained, or it could be a revenue hot seat. It could be any matter of reason for the hot seat. So we used to do one of these every month, and it's completely my bad that we slowed these down because back end of last year we had so much new content, we were looking to get it all out, but we're going to reintroduce the hot seat. So today we've got our hot seat for January, and we've got Darren Franks. So in short, I was looking for a title for Darren, and it was difficult to come up with one because he's done so much. But in essence, the outcome so far, and it is always evolving, the outcome so far is 5x the revenue, roughly, in the first 6 months of being with us. But there's been a number of shifts that I'm very quickly going to highlight, but then I'm going to let Darren share his story. So with a hot seat, guys, key thing is this. The document you need inside the inner circle is called the Hot Seat Maximizer. And you'll note the strategy, you'll note the insight, you know the action. So if we have a 90-minute, 2-hour hot seat once a month, end of each year, you've got 24 hours of people who've gone from either startup to 300K, or they've gone from 300K to 600K, or in this case, 5x their revenue very quickly. If you take the strategy and the insight and apply it to the actions inside the inner circle in the relevant session, you've got gold for your team to implement. So don't allow this to be passive. Shut down Facebook, shut down all the other elements you're looking at right now. Make this an application session, because everything you're going through, someone else has done before. So very quickly, this is our handsome man. He's very, very shy, very retiring, and you're about to see that yourself. Darren actually isn't that good looking in real life. This must be taken when he's 21. But he's still fairly handsome. But this is Darren's going to be sharing his story today. So I'm going to let Darren drive all this. But I just want to give you quick insights. You go and check him out. See he's on LinkedIn, and you'll see his background. He's got a very heavyweight background in recruitment that Darren's going to share. Now, just very quickly, some shifts we're going to go through. So really getting from panic mode into more business than he can handle. This is Darren's words, not mine. From 300 emails a day to less than 20. From fluffy business plan to blueprint. From what do I do with this business through to so I sell it or have a lifestyle business. And being part of the group, feeling alone, to really now got a group of, you guys are in it. Well, most of you are in it, you doers. So these are some of the shifts Darren's going to go through you. But in terms of the framework for the next 90 minutes, 2 hours, say 90 minutes, we'll go to 3 parts. So the first part, probably about 20 minutes. And Darren's going to share his own story, so from a helicopter view. Now, for all of you on the call now, this first part, you might be on iTunes, you might be on YouTube, etc., etc. This first part, you guys are going to get, and it's Blake Leese. See if Blake's on the call. If you're there, Blake, give me a high five. It's actually Blake who said, listen, these hot seats and members sharing their cool stuff, it would be great for other people outside of the inner circle to know about this. So the first part, the shifts and Darren's story, we're going to let all of you see it, everyone, for the first time. So that first part, everyone can see it. So Blake, complete kudos to you, your idea. Now again, we're going to reference some of these shifts. Second part, part 2, we're going to have to say goodbye to non-inner circle members because this is going to be privy, private, confidential to the group. And Darren's going to take us through his application of the inner circle strategies and what he's done and some of how he's done it. So that's going to be purely for members, obviously. And part 3 will be around Darren's future. So what's the next 90 days look like? What's Darren's constraints right now? And we're going to ensure we've got a plan in place for Darren to really kick the backside out of the next 90 days. And focusing on metrics, focusing on revenue, focusing on profit, and less time in the business of Darren. So the key fundamentals from inside the inner circle. So there's 3 phases again. So again, the first 20 minutes, thereabouts, everyone will hear. So Darren will be famous. Parts 2 and 3, clearly it's going to be for you guys on the call now, inner circle members. So that's what we're going to do. And again, that's down to Blake. So Blake, big virtual high five. So with that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over the mic to our man Darren. I'm going to bring up my iPad. So I'm going to mute Darren. Are you there, Darren?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Darren, how you doing?
Andy. I'm good. So, yeah, the internet's been a bit iffy today, so hopefully it holds up.
Well, I'm sure we can power through it. So first off, just for guys on the call, I want to make sure that they can hear you okay. Just let the guys know, well, what do you have for lunch? Standard question.
Sushi, actually, believe it or not.
Oh, was it?
Very trying to be on the old health kick now. I've actually found some time in the week to go back to the gym. So, yeah.
Oh, good man.
On a bit of a health kick.
Good man. So guys, first off, can you hear Darren okay? Let me know. You must be doing well if you're going to the gym. Yep, great. So let's do this then. So first off, let's say this first 20 minutes, let's for those on the call, so Inner Circle members, the biggest challenge that we normally see is, shit, does this work? And then actually getting it into implementation, then we tweak and we convert, et cetera, et cetera. So first part of this is really for existing Inner Circle members to go, well, most of the guys are actually doing this now, to a lesser or greater extent to yourself, Darren, but really it's for them to go, shit, this guy's only been with us X amount of months and this has happened. So if we go through that, your sort of story, if it's cool with you, I'll sort of drive the framework, and if you can sort of give me your story to go through, is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Cool. So let's do this then. So guys, again, I want to bring up the hot seat maximizer. As we go through, you guys post questions, insights for Darren inside the chat box. But let's power through this then. So if we think about before you and I met then, Darren, going back to those days, and where you were right at the time, and where you were, what sort of going through in your mindset, you had some things going on, didn't you? So, should I move forward, et cetera, et cetera. But before all that, though, there's a little bit about you, isn't there? So how did you get to that place? So if I may, could you just give me a bit of background on yourself, Darren? So, who you are, what you've been doing. Just give us a minute or two so the guys can get the sort of, they can get who you are. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, this is my 19th year in the industry, although obviously I don't look like that from the picture, but that was taken quite a few years ago. So, yeah, 19 years doing this. I originally started in the UK. I worked for part of the Harvey Nash Group for a couple of years, contingency recruitment, then joined a startup at that time, which was again it was contingency player, but had more of a focus on the international markets, which kind of really appealed to me at that point. So I spent the first, I think, 4 or 5 years working in that business, and literally it was 2-3 of us, and built it up to it was about 22 people, I think, at that point. And then we had an office in Dubai that wasn't doing very well, so I was asked to go out to Dubai for a year, 6 years later, after running Dubai office and kind of loving life out there, and went out there as a single man, came back with a wife and 2 kids. Not quite sure how that happened. And then we decided we wanted a footprint in Africa. We've been doing a lot of work there. I kind of looked around the room and said, well, who's going to go and launch it? And no one put their hands up, so it looked like it was me. So moved the family to Cape Town. That was 4.5, maybe 5 years ago now, actually. And worked in that business. And anyway, to cut a long story short, exited that business, where are we now, 2.5 years ago. And I was done. Quite honestly, Andy, I know we've had this conversation. I was done with the recruitment. I was done with running sales teams. I was done with being that master-slave relationship with clients. I was done with I'm not going to say the competitive element, but working against 5 or 6 other agencies. That whole sort of contingent model, I honestly just had enough. So I went on a bit of a spree and started speaking to different sort of software vendors who were all involved in talent acquisition or HR, and just seeing what was out there. And as I was sort of working with a lot of these vendors, what struck me was their process, their client attraction process, the sort of nurturing that went on. And there was a couple in particular that have always sort of stuck in my mind of, I thought, this is great. I've gone onto their website, and then an hour later I've got an email going, hey, look, one of you be interested in this or that. how do they read my mind? How do they know that? And it kind of opened my eyes to the whole sort of inbound marketing. And prior to obviously speaking with you, Andy, I decided that we were going to do recruitment. We were going to go back into recruitment, but I wanted to do it in a very different way. We were going to try this kind of inbound methodology and see whether it could be applied to recruitment. And quite honestly, we winged it for best part of 3-4 months. And we had a bit of success. We had a couple of clients that sort of came to us, but there wasn't any focus. There certainly wasn't a niche. We were doing kind of recruitment in Africa. And that's 54 countries and God knows how many billions of people. So it was just far too wide. And there was just no clear strategy. I had some investment from a couple of individuals, high net worth individuals who I'd known for a while. They put a bit of money into the business just to kind of fund us for a year. But that money was starting to dry up. So, I've got a lifestyle I need to maintain, not necessarily to the same level as it was when I was in Dubai, but kids in school, wife,
happy wife, happy life.
Else that goes with that. So, well, exactly, and it wasn't happy wife at that point. It was a very stressful wife and very stressful husband. It was stressful anyway. So. I think some of the other things, I've written some notes down here, Andy, as well. And one of the things I think that I wasn't aware of, or I certainly didn't have any data around, was actually the opportunity cost. And when I'm talking about opportunity cost, when you get a new role from a client and you have to fill it in, if you're getting 20 different roles in a month, you have to do 20 different searches. You have to do 20 times the amount of work. Whereas if you're working in a niche and you have, a bank of data, as in candidates, actually you don't need to go and reinvent the wheel every time. Now, obviously, there's going to be, the old requirements that come up where you're going to have to go and do a search. And to be fair, we're still doing a lot of that, but I can certainly see where we're moving towards. So the opportunity cost was really high. We had no direction as a business. I had a business plan, but quite honestly, it was a templated one that I've used for donkey's years, and just kind of filling in the blanks. But it wasn't a plan. It was a document just to kind of, tick the box that we've got a business plan. The bank wanted one, so we just knocked one together and gave it to the bank. But there was certainly no clear direction, and there wasn't really a strategy. And I think ultimately I was doing everything myself. I had a couple of people who worked for me in the past that joined me. But I was doing probably 90% of the work, and that's not sustainable. It's not scalable, and I would have burnt. I was already starting to feel burnt out after sort of 6 or 7 months of doing this by myself, and just things. It needed to change. We needed more direction. And I felt I had a lot of the understanding of how inbound works, but I certainly didn't have the recipe. I didn't know how it all fitted together.
Got it.
And then I jumped onto one of your podcasts. I think it was one of your webinars, and I think it was. I'm an honest guy. I think it was probably 4 minutes in. I went, yeah, okay, done. And I think I booked into your calendar about 4 minutes into that conversation. So that's kind of where we were, and yeah, I think that kind of answers your question, hopefully.
Yeah, it does. So the reason why I wanted you on the call, Darren, is 2 reasons. Number one is because you've got an extensive background in recruitment, like most people on the call now in some way, but you already have gone through the process, setting up in a substantial business, transferred to a different country, done it again. You've been around the block, in short, is the first thing. And the second thing was, I remember I was very transparent with you and said, when I met you, I was like, fucking love Darren. We met in London, and it was like, well, when I first met you, what everyone knows is like, oh, this guy might be a little bit of a handful, because like you say, you've been through lots of stuff, but what you've done though is you've taken it and ran with it. And I got that assumption completely wrong, completely on me. But that's just based on the written word, which means jack all. So when you watched that webinar and you came in and all that stuff happened, in your mind, just if you could summarize this in 10 seconds, what was going through your mind? Was it confusion? Was it overwhelm? Or what was going on first of all?
No, it wasn't any of that. It honestly, it was excitement. That's the only word I can use, because I was looking for this kind of support. And I think the other thing, sorry, this is going to be more than 10 seconds, but I want to give some background to this as well. I'd acted as an NED for a couple of businesses. again, I honestly probably wasn't adding a great deal of value. I was then approached by probably every other NED there is in the recruitment industry, asking me for £1,000 a month to basically talk to me for an hour a month.
Yep.
And I just wasn't going to get any value from that. They're great guys. And I think if you're running a traditional recruitment business, they're great people to have, and I'm sure they have lots of value. But for me, it just wouldn't work. So again, I kind of went through that circle, and when I came across you guys and I listened to that webinar, honestly, it was kind of a no-brainer. I was just excited.
Love that. It's that's what makes me buzz. You know that makes me smile in a geeky way. Okay, so when you joined, you came in with excitement, and then you got moving forward. Let's do this. If we could break down maybe. Let's do the following. So let's maybe look at what was going on inside the inner circle. Oh, sorry, before you joined the inner circle. So for two reasons. One, for those listening now on the call who are inside the Ignition group, some will be at your position, some will be before it, but they're going to go, oh shit, I'm where Darren was. The big mighty Darren. That's where I am. So what was going on, before you actually joined the inner circle? Maybe in terms of, business finances, maybe time in the business, maybe what was your vision for the future of the business? If you break it down maybe to those three areas: business, finances, and then time in the business, then, what was going through your mind in terms of the growth of the business, the future, before the inner circle? What was going on in your world at that point?
So I'd invested quite a bit of money into this venture, and that money was slowly starting to dissipate, as was our nest egg that we built up over a number of years. So there was a lot of pressure, a hell of a lot of pressure to generate revenue. Prior to coming to RMA, we had some deals, and it was kind of trickling through. There just was no scale, and there was no real focus. So that's kind of where we were financially. As I said to you, we did get some investment, and we still got some investors, which is great. We actually agreed an amount that they would invest for a stake in the business. We've only actually drawn down 50% of that money in the last 2 years, which is great. So we've still got a buffer just in case we want to do something, a bit different, or we have, God forbid, a couple of quiet months. We still have a bit of security. But so that's where we were financially. In terms of me and what my life looked like, I had a bedroom that I converted into an office that was on top of my garage. It had 2 skylights. It actually still has skylights. I haven't spent any money on it, so it's still got 2 skylights. And I spent probably 14 to 15 hours a day in that room. I may have gone downstairs to have the odd bite to eat, or my wife, when she was there, she'd bring up a sandwich. But that was it. That was my life. I was in these 4 walls, and those 4 walls got closer and closer and darker and darker.
You've all been there.
And it was, and whilst working from home, I think for some people it suits them. I've always worked in an office. I needed to get out, and I can come on to that bit in a bit if you want.
Love to. So in terms of the financial side, the before, so we've got some pressure there, and we'll come through the shift in a second, because the figure I mentioned was right, I think, wasn't it? From sort of 5-7k a month, 5 to 7k to about 30k a month now, isn't it? So moving rapidly, but that actual shift we'll go through in a second. But before then, so we got the financial side of things. What about in terms of your actual, the lifeblood of the business, which is clients and its candidates? Just give the guys an insight into maybe what's happening before in terms of client leads or candidates.
Yeah, so I actually won a deal back where we're now, 2016 December, I think it was. Yeah, it was 2016. An old client of mine, or an old contact of mine, contacted me saying he's just moved to a new company. They're looking at expanding across Africa. They're doing this thing called fintech or payments. And I went, okay, yeah, fine. And he said, we need 40 people. Yeah, okay, no problem. So I got on a plane, went over to Nairobi, met him, literally signed a deal there, and then came back and went, okay, this is going to be interesting. What the bloody hell's fintech? What the bloody hell? It was a good deal. It was on a retainer. It was on a 12-month retainer. So I had, consistent revenue coming in, enough to cover the overheads of the business, but certainly not enough to make any profit. So that was kind of deal one. And then we had a couple of other bits and pieces. Again, just from contacts we knew, it was, just that same old recruitment, going through your black book, or be it, it's now called LinkedIn, but going through that and just trying to find business. And that was soul destroying. That was, I've got, some skills in some area where I've never, so I was back to doing that, and it wasn't fun.
Got it. So just it's broke up very quickly, but I think I got the gist of it. So if we break down what you were maybe doing, this might be an idea before we get into the how. If we think about what was the before and after. So if we got the before and we got the after, if we think about maybe break it down to what, so one's going to be your finances. Two's going to be the lifeblood. It's going to be client leads and candidates. If we break it down into, you went into your personal life, and you being Nick Knowles, sorting out your solar panels on the roof, your skylights on the roof. 3 is your time in the business. If we break down to before and after of those 3, if just in terms of just a brief breakdown, so do it this way, be easier. Before and after, because you referenced some of those elements there. So if that's your personal driver, which it sounds like they were at the time, what was going on? So in terms of finances, per month, what was it before? What is it now? Client leads, what was it before? What is it now? Then your time in the business, what was it before? And what is it now? Just so before we get into a bit more detail, the guys on the call can sort of get some objective measure.
Yeah, sure. So before, we were averaging about £7,000, £8,000 a month. Just to put that into context as well, it's probably important just to note the market we're working in, which is the fintech side across Africa. Obviously, the salaries in Africa, therefore the fees in Africa are a lot less than what they would be in Europe or the US.
Yep.
So that 7K is probably 3 or 4 deals, as opposed to maybe 1 or half of what some of the other members do.
Got it.
Where we're up now, we're up to look at this month, it's about 40K. Next month's probably going to be about 38K. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, my maths isn't that good, but we're damn sight better than we were.
So it's actually a bit more than that. So 5-6 times where you are. And so in 6 months, it's roughly basically 5 or 6x the business then, which is 5 to 6x the business in 6 months. Great. What about your client leads then? So the lifeblood obviously is clients and its candidates. Just rough understand before and after. Because what we can do in a second, we can dig deep on these. What was it before for client leads, candidates, and what was it now?
Well, for client leads was a big fat 0. I mean, there just wasn't any leads. It was all that sort of outbound calling, sending emails. The stuff that every other agency does, basically.
And what's it now?
Candidates, oh gosh. Okay, so this month, and where are we? 23rd of Jan, I've had 24 booked client calls into my diary without me doing anything, without me speaking to a single person.
24 into diary, and we're 2/3 of the way through the month. Okay.
So that's 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's booked. People want to talk to me, our ideal avatars. In the diary.
Great.
Candidate-wise, for us, not a big challenge. Candidates, it's very much a client-led market as opposed to a candidate-led market. So generating candidates was never really a problem, and still isn't really a problem.
So the constraint was client side. So cool. So we completely turned around and said 24 into diary, and what's the date today? 23rd. Cool.
23rd of Jan.
So maybe 1 a day then, extrapolate across a month. So time in the business. So your time in the business then, what was it like before for you? And what is it now? One of the reasons that you're talking, Darren, is on one of the inner calls we did before Christmas, you put inside the chat box, you've taken your, you and I had a conversation about your inbox, didn't we? And then you put inside the chat box, my inbox is at 0. And then I think a few people thought we were bullshitting. And it was like, well done, Darren, because you turned it around in a matter of hours. I said to you, it might take a lot longer than that. So your time in the business, just what was it before and what is it now? And we can dig a bit deeper on what it means in a second, but...
Yeah. So, I'm a workaholic. If there was a diagnostic for that, I would certainly be into that quartile. So my time in the business probably hasn't changed.
Darren, you're making me look stupid now.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
I'm joking.
It's about productivity. No,
Yeah,
'cause I think it's about, you can be a busy fool, which is what I
exactly.
was. I was a busy fool. I was running around like a bloody headless chicken, trying to do everything. I was building websites. I was doing deals with vendors. I was farting around with Twitter. Honestly, I was doing absolutely bloody everything. Now I'm probably doing the same amount of hours, but I'm in more control. Obviously I've got a team now, so we've delegated. People have got very clear roles, which I can come on to in a bit, how we got to that point.
Yeah,
And by the way, I don't hire a single salesperson. There's not one single salesperson in my business.
brilliant.
And that's how I want to remain, ish. Yeah, in terms of time, I'm probably doing the same amount of hours, but I really enjoy what I do now anyway. And yeah, so the time hasn't changed, but productivity has increased, I don't know, 100-fold.
That's a better question, actually. You've given me a good frame there. That's a better question in the future, productivity in the business versus time. Absolutely right. Some people say, screw it, I'll do 2 days a week. And others say, well, if you give me 4 days a week, I'll still work 4 days, but 3x the revenue, whatever it's going to be. So that's a better question. Thank you for that. I wish we did that privately. So in terms of maybe if we took some of the biggest changes, so we've referenced there some objective measures that we can dig deep on in a second when we go into inner circle only and the hows and strategies and so forth. But in terms of the biggest changes, so if you could just maybe summarize those. So we referenced a very quick screenshot of some of the things, but if those sort of 4, 5, 6, 7 things that which has been a shift for you, Darren, if you could go through those just very quickly, maybe a minute or two on each one, that'd be useful, really, really useful, because each of those is 100% a problem for almost everyone at some point in building their recruitment business, no matter where they are. So let's go through those. So basically, these are the changes. Maybe from it's about 6 months together now. We've been inside the inner circle about that. Yeah. So if we're 6 months in, so of course the shifts between 6 months and 12 months be different from the shifts 0 to 6 months. So if we look at the shifts then from 0 to 6 months, where we are now, and we go through those shifts, just if you could give an insight into what it was and the impact.
Well, the single biggest one is the niche. Is the niche focus. That is, without that, anyone that's considering going into sort of RMI or anything equivalent, it's just not going to work. You need to have a focus. And I think, Andy, after our first call, which was probably the week after the webinar, I think it was, you said your niche, which wasn't really a niche, it was kind of recruitment in Africa, was far too wide, far too broad. You need to narrow it. I think the day after that, we kind of sat around and went, all right, well, let's just do fintech in Africa, and literally had a punt. And that, actually, it's worked out quite well. But so for me, the niche focus is the single biggest thing that we changed.
Great. So before we were more general, what's the second one?
Yeah. I think the other one was probably a mindset shift, and that was, you're not going to please everyone. There's no such thing as perfection. Stop trying to be a perfectionist. And that was a big thing for me. I've been building my personal brand. It sounds a bit corny and a bit crap. But I've been kind of building my profile for many, many years. And what I didn't want to do was dilute that by sending out kind of crap, badly worded emails or, crappy content. So I didn't want to do any of that. But then I quite quickly learned or acknowledged that, you can't be perfect in all of this. And, just because you haven't put a comma in the right place on a certain article doesn't make any blind bit of difference to anyone. It's about getting your brand out there, and it's about that brand awareness. So that was the second one.
Yeah, one of the things with you, Darren, I've got to say as well on that, because when we spoke, we had that conversation. It was a little bit, I won't say button heads, because you got it and I got it, where you are, and it was just having that faith to move. So Darren, do this. It's on my shoulders as well as yours. Just do it, and you did. But then you did some other things as well. So, for example, the client attainment system. You're the first person to sit down and use the client attainment system with gaps in it, so it becomes a conversion tool in terms of that, with the client, and you just did it. So I'd say that you've jumped over that hugely in terms of that just do it mindset. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. I would. I mean, again, because I think conceptually I got what RMI was about, and what all the strategies were, and maybe that was slightly different to some of the other members that are joining or have joined. Was that I kind of got it, and I kind of had the tools as well. I just didn't know how to apply them properly. So when I started going through the webinars and the training and all the various different hot seats and sessions, it kind of all made sense. But again, it was, well, let's just excuse the French here, but fuck it, let's just do it. And that's what we did.
We did.
Nothing to lose.
Exactly. What'd be a third shift?
The fact that I've taken the business into the realms of being a data-driven business, as opposed to being reliant on people, relying on 360 recruiters or 180 recruiters or 80 or whatever fucking recruiters you can call. I've gone away from that, and we're now running the business on data.
Love that. So 3 shifts then: niche focus, mindset shift, and from people reliant, little black book reliant, into data-driven reliant. And I didn't realize you had no salespeople. We're looking to hire no salespeople, well, per se. What about the one thing you mentioned to me, which I thought was 2 things you actually did? One was a tactical outcome, which is your inbox went from 300 to 20, that quick shift, because I think, who was it, Blake? If it wasn't Blake, my apologies. Someone was going through the same process just before Christmas, and I gave a timeline and a set of steps. And then you chirped in and said, I did it in 2 hours. And again, you made me look silly, Darren. So in terms of the tactic, that shift that you did with the emails, just if you could just give a minute into it is possible. Maybe not so much the how, but a case of just doing it. And secondly, one thing you also said was about again, you've been in recruitment a long time now, and you've gone to different countries to set up offices. It's like the whole business plan approach. So now you've got something that is tangible, as opposed to just a piece of paper a bank manager wants to see. If you could go those 2 things, I think that'd be useful for the guys on the call right now. Could you do that?
Yeah. So in terms of the email, that was a burden. Because we were running all the RRR campaigns, and I had live roles. So I was resourcing roles. I had candidates coming in left, right, and centre. I had clients emailing me. I had various other emails backwards and forwards, and it was getting hundreds. I mean, literally hundreds a day, and it was just unmanageable. I spent most of my time replying to emails as opposed to doing anything else. So I actually at that point found a couple of tools. I've later changed, which I can talk to you about in a bit, but we found that actually using a help desk type tool was actually far better than trying to use Outlook or Gmail or anything like that. Help desk type applications, and we use one called Front App. That's FRONT app, APP, which was great. So you set it up, it's a shared inbox, all the emails go into there, and then you can delegate to various people, and you can set up rules. So if an email contains an attachment, then it goes into this box, this inbox, and goes to that person. If it contains this word, then it goes into another inbox. So it was pretty clever, and literally, within 2 hours, I trained our actual assistant and said, look, here you go, this is what you do. I've built all the templates for you. All you need to do is click, 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 and we're done. And that worked. It was great. And then to cut a long story short, that actual assistant is no longer with us. So my emails went from being 0 back to being 500 a day. And then we've got someone else on board who's fantastic. And we're making that transition across. But what we're doing is we're using a couple of different email addresses. So I've got my primary one, which is Darren at talentinthecloud.io. And then we have a secondary one, which is Darren.Franks at talentinthecloud.io. That one is purely used for marketing our campaigns. So whenever we run something out of RRR, it goes into that. It comes from that email address and goes into that inbox. And nice. Then the chap that's running this is basically, he's me. So he responds to everything. He's got templates, but you know what? Again, a slightly different model given where I am in the world, which is at the moment South Africa. The cost of hiring people permanently to be in your office is really no different from hiring a virtual assistant in Pakistan or India. So for me, it was better to have someone physically here that I can actually talk to, train, and can develop, rather than just having someone that I'm paying just to do something. So that was a big shift. He's banging on with that. He's doing a load of other bits and pieces. He's implementing some other RMI strategies and getting a bit creative with some videos. And so that's kind of what we've done on that side.
Love it. And in terms of, I just thought of the second one actually, if I may. First one, you're, again, because you've got this extensive background, so you get the whole shit, I'm building a business here. And say 2.5 years ago, you think like knocking it on the head. But your change from, your words I think was fluffy, through to, a direct plan. I know that the workflow and those bits, we'll dig a bit deeper shortly, but just in terms of maybe for those guys on the call which are outside listening to you going, what does he mean by now I've got something to actually follow, a plan, or I've got a system, or I've got something to work towards. What was the shift there for you?
Well, this is work in progress, as everything else is.
Of course.
And I felt I needed to kind of visualize what we were doing, from start to end. So literally from how do we get a customer, or how do we get a lead actually, all the way through to how do we manage the account once we've
I'll tell you what we'll do, Darren. I'll tell you what we'll do, Darren, if it's cool with you, because now we're going to tiptoe into something that is going to be, we're going to be sharing IP here, aren't we? Let's do this. I was conscious of time too. Let's do this. In terms of the actual shift you've gone through, clearly as many. In terms of the actual fellow members, so you and I spoke, yourself and Lee, for example, what you guys do offline. But in terms of what you've got, in terms of the the support mechanism, other guys around you inside the inner circle doing the same things. What's been the biggest shift for you there, from working, as you say, in your bedroom 14 hours a day? We've all been there. It is pain. Through to maybe the group you've got now. What's been a big light bulb or insight or learning from that process for you, as in the existing members?
It's difficult to put this into words without sounding really corny and cheesy, but I think the support that you have access to within the inner circle. There's lots of people, I'm sure many of them are on this call today, that, we've had lots of offline conversations, we've kicked around some ideas, we've kind of, pulled a few things apart, we've had a giggle about certain things. And I think just having that ability to talk to like-minded people who are actually on the same journey, albeit very different stages, but are on that same journey. Again, I've been part of groups in the UK and in the Middle East where it's a load of recruiters that get together and, all they do is, it's kind of I'm not going to use that term. It's, look at me, look at how successful I am. And there's no knowledge sharing, it's very closed. It doesn't really give much value. All it is a bunch of people, puffing their chests out and trying to drink tequila shots, which, quite frankly, I'm getting a bit long in the tooth for that. So what I think RMI offers, or what's offered me anyway, I can't talk for anyone else, is just that ability to have a conversation with someone who's on a completely different side of the planet, in a completely different sector, and just to have a real meaningful conversation about strategies that are working for them, strategies that perhaps aren't working for us, and why aren't they? Can we tweak them? And it's not a case, Andy, of calling you every 5 minutes. I think there's a lot of people on this call that are happy to share their time, and people, I think, put in a lot and share a lot of knowledge, and I don't think you can get that anywhere else. Well, I've not seen it anyway. No,
I agree with you. We've got a stringent dick-free zone or douchebag-free zone, depending where you are in the world and how you describe it. But and I think it's paid dues now, definitely, 1,000,000%. But there's 3 things that you've done, Darren, here, which I think for our members, indeed everyone outside the group as well, but our members to follow. Number 1, what Darren has done is implement really, really quickly. That's why I want Darren to give this intro and this insight. Number 2, it's a case of what works, don't know yet. Right, where's the strategy? Give the strategy, we implement it, we tweak it. And that's what Darren's done, tweak it. Then the third thing is, there are members inside the group, probably they've done what you're looking to do. They've already done it. And when Darren and I did speak, I didn't know that, for example, you and Lee have got this bromance going on. But all these elements, but then also from that conversation, it's saying from a helicopter view, taking different strategies, and there's this workflow that sits behind it, that different things you've done, which we'll come to shortly. But first off, guys on the call now, members, I want you to really take that from Darren. Darren has been through recruitment. He's been there, done that. But it's a case of just sucking up and just doing it, and then just implementing, and then tweaking, and then sharing. And I don't mean just sharing your wins, but I mean really, integrating into that group. There is a relationship between those who seem to be engaged and hear with how they're doing and the result. However, I got down the G completely wrong, and it happens all the time too. But I really want you guys to really do what Darren's doing here.
Discover how to build your recruitment employment agency using one to many automation and inbound strategies before anyone else in your market specialization. Check out recruitmentmarketinginternational.com.